Nothing? Yep. Why?
Because, well, assuming it's being pushed by equal forces from all sides, it shouldn't go anywhere.
Okay, I will agree, center of mass should, well, it's an equilibrium, so we don't, ish. Actually, it's not an equilibrium.
It might be pushed up or down.
Suddenly dealing with how much reality do I want?
Yeah, what is the material made of? Would it say? What?
Let's just assume for the sake of this, if depth of the ocean is probably a bad example. Depth of the ocean, there actually the force from the bottom would be greater than the force from the top, the buoyant force. And I mean, for the same reason that a helium balloon will float up, because the force upwards is greater than the force downwards. And
Let's just say wind,
just,
like
well,
wind.
even without the wind,
No, I mean, let's just say wind on land, like you're being blown with wind.
yeah, but for modulus, I need the equal force pretty much from all sides.
Well, let's just say in an imaginary world that wind is gonna, it is.
All right.
It's a hypothetical situation.
The wind
anyways.
conspires and is pushing on this thing from all
Yeah.
sides. All right. What would you expect to happen to an object that's being pushed on from all sides? Pushed inwards on all sides?
It would collapse inwards eventually.
Hopefully not the eventual, well, within the time frame of whatever you've just built. Let's hope it doesn't collapse in on itself. But there is a certain expectation that if I pushed on it, it would sort of shrink in each direction. Not necessarily by much, but enough that can be measured. So I take my object here. We will, for the sake of this, assume that the force in each direction is F. If it is not the same force in every direction as would be the case if the buoyant force were involved, it gets far more complicated. Sort of in a reverse, though, of what we dealt with yesterday, if I pulled on an object, the middle part got smaller as the outer part got longer. In this case right here, if we reversed it, if I push on it, so if I think about these two forces pushing that way, it would cause these two sides to want to bulge out. But we have this other force coming in this way to try to keep it from doing that. So there's this play here, and the net result is ultimately it will become a smaller volume. And so how much the volume will shrink is captured in the bulk modulus. Quick check just to see if there's a 1,000 other names. Oh yes, just one other name, also known as volume elasticity. And of course, there's more than one symbol for it because that seems to be the way this thing's going. B is the one I'll be using. It's what your textbook uses, but also a capital K I have seen as well. All right, so we're now still dealing with the same type modulus here as you apply a force and there's some sort of change in shape or size. Just as Young's modulus within the elasticity region is stress divided by strain. Shear modulus is shear stress over shear strain. Bulk modulus, volume stress over volume strain. So volume stress, use the symbol for stress with a little bit of a V, with a little V down there, and then strain with a little V. Because we do expect that the object is going to shrink under these forces, we do expect the volume to get smaller, so the change in volume will be a negative number, and so we tack on a negative here to make the bulk modulus a positive number. Now stress, force divided by area. I've got a whole bunch of forces here, and I got 6 different areas, 6 different surfaces. But if we make the assumption that the force is all the same, and that it's a cube, then we get away with something a little bit similar. Force divided by area, where, well, take any of the forces since they're all the same, and area is the area of the face that that force is pushing on. Divided by change in volume over the volume. So if the bulk modulus is a large number, let's say I have 2 bulk moduluses, 2 materials, one is a bulk modulus bigger than the second one. What would that tell you about the 2 materials?
The bulk modulus of,
Like I said, the material might be different.
I think it's a fair assumption.
and the bulk modulus of the first material is, makes the material stronger. Material must be stronger.
So less apt to change.
Yes.
Okay. So as we are looking at this, if this is a larger number, well, the 2 things that could happen, I mean, I got a fraction here. Let's assume that I expose both of them to the exact same force and the 2 cubes are the exact same size initially. If B1 is bigger than B2, the only way that happens is if the denominator is smaller for B1. Smaller denominator, larger fraction, which only happens if the volume does not change as much. So less volume change than B2, or than this one. So there's another way of looking at this. Textbook uses a lowercase k for this, where k is compressibility. I can spell. There we go. So the more compressible it is, the greater the compressibility. So if B1 is bigger than B2, then K2 is bigger than K1. It's more compressible. It's more apt to change under this pressure coming at it. And that at least is exposure to all the elements of this particular chapter. Any questions at this point? All right, so I'm going to say I'm officially done with 13. What I propose is that we have a quiz on 13 a week from today.
Next week is spring break.
Okay, 2 weeks from today. There's just, well, it's on a Wednesday because Tuesday, first day back from vacation. Just not a fan of quizzes or tests right coming back off of a break. All right, so 2 weeks from today, the quiz on 13. So the way that's going to work is if you have completed or at least done at least one submission of the course entry assignment, then coursework should now be available. You open up coursework and you should see chapter 13. You click on 13, and somewhere there's an item that says textbook homework problems, chapter 13, something along those lines. If you click on it, it will have certain problems assigned from chapter 13. I'm gonna take 2 of those problems, change the numbers, that will be the quiz. So if you know how to work all the problems that have been assigned, quiz should be absolutely no problem whatsoever. You had a question, Ronald?
Yeah, they, all of them, I open it up, they show you, and then they give you the answer. So,
Yeah, the solutions are there in the document.
yes. So, do you want us to do some other ones so we can figure out the solution on our own?
Are you finding the solutions too tempting?
Yeah, what I'm saying is, cause like the first one, you have F equals, the formula, and
Right.
that was kinda easy. And then I was trying to figure out, okay, the second one, they added more to it.
Right.
Cause they had 9.68, and I was trying to figure out where to get the 9.68, and that was not delineated on the problem. And that's why when I asked you about the 4 radius, where they got that formula from.
Okay.
So I was trying to denote where that came from. So then they gave you solution to all of that.
Right, so. Margin of our class.
Oh, is this film? Are we filming? Is this live?
This is live.
Oh, we're live? Sorry, guys.
We all the way live. So, yeah, cause I was looking at that, trying to figure out where they get certain things out of it.
Okay,
Ron,
so,
there's, the questions, they're in the book.
Okay.
And on the worksheet, it tells you the page number and
Okay.
the question number.
Okay.
So you can do it without
Yeah.
having the answers right
Yeah,
there.
okay. I'll do it on the back.
right, because there's sometimes, I have presented, here are the problems without any solutions at all, and then I've got the solutions as a separate document. I mean, I can do that too.
Well, that's okay,
Okay.
I went through it, but,
Okay. The assigned problems, though, you're not handing the assigned problems in to me.
Yeah,
Instead of doing that, that's why we're doing the quiz.
yes,
And that's why I'm giving you solutions to them.
okay.
So tomorrow I'll start out with, are there any questions? So if you have questions I can take questions now also, but typically I start out with, are there any questions? And that would be a time to ask about.
I have a question, but it's about the book. Is that in the, is that at the library right now?
I don't know.
Yeah,
Just-
I ordered this
yeah.
online.
Oh, so it was like, you didn't go to the library for it?
No, cause they started writing this.
Yeah, it's out of print.
You might get a picture of your book.
So, yeah.
I'm gonna lose your page.
No, that's all right, it's at the end of 13.
Should be on the syllabus also, some of the specs for it, not the picture, but.
I noticed that one video, you were talking about the 10th and 11th and 12th edition.
Oh, yeah, that was a Physics 110 thing, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, because this is the 7th.
7th issue.
Yeah, the 110 textbook, they seem to change every 3 years. I understand they're in it to make a profit. But at some point, I'm gonna say, no more.
Didn't you have to write a book, doctor?
Did I have to write a book?
Yeah, you wrote a thesis, so,
Yeah, it's a dissertation.
dissertation, but, I was wondering, did you write a book?
No. Textbook, the thing that always sort of stops me whenever I get the idea of should write it, because the book that, the way I want it written, is the problems. To come up with 100 problems would drive me out of my mind. One more student just arrived in. Thank you. What, about to hand something else in?
Yeah, I got my lab, but I had a question, so I can't really interrupt your lecture and ask you a question, can I?
Yeah, probably not. At some point, if you hang out long enough, there'll be an opportunity.
Sure.
All right, so questions about what the quiz is gonna be like next Wednesday, other than specifically what questions are gonna be on it?
I do have a question about how it's gonna be graded, because, if, I can imagine, a two-problem quiz, it's easy to get a low grade on. Is it just gonna be graded on the answer or the process?
I've survived many courses on partial credit, I believe in partial credit. So yes, please show your work. Now, I have some students who absolutely refuse to show any work and just write down an answer. And that's the gamble they're taking, that they didn't make some silly error. Sometimes I see people throwing their work away. One, recycle it if it's on paper. But two, I say, why not just include it? I mean, if it's a mess and I can't figure it out, you're no worse off. Or if I can figure out where you did your work, then at least there's possibility of some partial credit there. I will tell you one thing that's really crucial. Make sure there are units in your answers, where units are appropriate. If you leave units off, when there should be units, on a 10-point problem, that's -3 right there. So, if you have the wrong units, it's -2. I guess I've done -1 for units if it should be a capital letter and you use a lowercase or something along those lines. Thank you. I think I answered your question.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions right now?
Do you want us to use units throughout the problem or just on the final answer?
Final answer is fine. The advantage of putting everything in terms of international standard units at the beginning is that you don't have to think about it till the end. If you're starting to use a mixture of units, then yeah, you need to track it all. But yeah, I'm looking at the end. And if there's no problem, I check it, move on. If there's an issue, then I go back and I try to figure out where the issue is. So, if your answer is correct with the right units, I'm good. All right, we're about to morph into a lab. Traditionally, when there's a lab, I'll ask you to print it out beforehand. The first one I'm printing out, that's sitting in the other room right now, should be on the copier, or printer, I guess officially. The main purpose of this lab is as a vehicle to do graphs and also to work on some of the eccentricities of doing labs for me. If you've seen the lab orientation video, I'm not gonna cover everything that's in there. Please make sure you watch the lab orientation video. But I am gonna hit some things that tend to be the most common mistakes I see. I'm picturing two groups doing this lab. All of your names and all the group names are gonna be the same. So at the top, we're worded badly. Try that one again. If 3 people are in the same group, I expect all of them to have the exact same group name. Exact same group name. All of us and all of us, those are 2 different names. And unless I'm looking at that and going, is that a space or do they just pick their pen up? So that's a different group name. Case for case, space for space, letter for letter, character for character. It doesn't even have to be a real word, but you do need to be identical. Part of a lab, at times it seems like the main part of the lab, is you're demonstrating your attention to detail. This is one of those details. The other place that the most common mistake is for, units. I know that I've been told that from some of my students that such and such over in this other department always wanted us to rewrite the units. Don't rewrite the units for me. So if I have height in centimeters, what is in parentheses here is assumed to be after everything else. So if there's a 4.5 here, that's 4.5 centimeters, it's automatically there. If you write centimeters again, what you have said is that's 4.5 centimeters. So now you're looking at two-dimensional quantity, because you have centimeters squared now. Don't rewrite the units. If you've had instructors in the past who want you to rewrite them, fine, but don't do that here. And also, anyone in the exact same group, and I'll know that because you have the exact same group name, I do expect anything that you've measured directly in lab to be the same for all of you. I think, so, some measurement was done. I'm not hovering over you knowing exactly what the right number is. I'm gonna assume that the majority is correct. This person will take a deduction. None of you agree on what it is. You'll all take a deduction. And the other big one is there's another group name. We talked yesterday about analysis in your own words. Oh, it'll come to me in the middle of the night, screaming. I'll scream it as I wake up from the nightmare.
So did you find out if the video was recording yesterday?
No, I think what happened is, I don't know what's lapsed yet. When it gets, after 22 minutes and 41 seconds, it stops and starts the next one, and that's where the issue was. So I have I don't have half of a recording there, but there's gonna be a gap between whenever the first one ended and I started up the second one. So I'm not quite sure where that gap is yet.